Well, just about morning in about 11 minutes till midnight. It'll be Sunday, the 24th of April, 2022. You're a zombie out here in Roseman, California. We were John C. What's going on, guys? I was coming across some family postings online, Facebook. Nieces and nephews and future generations. I feel like I've been left behind in the cold. I was going to try writing, or actually try doing a video that was going to be inspiring. Instead, I got sidetracked with the music in my head. And I kept thinking it was Irving Gershwin. It had to be Irving, not Gershwin. Because there was a musical piece. And I thought Irving Berlin would be doing the musical pieces. He liked doing New York and stuff like that back in the 20s, 30s. And the problem was, even in the 40s when he was prolific, but the problem was it was the wrong author. It came into my head that I was thinking about United Airlines back in the 70s to 80s. Very prolific airlines. And the commercials I'd watch because the music on it would capture people's attention. If not the older generations, then the newer generation would. And that was Gershwin. And there was that music called Rhapsody in Blue. And if you haven't heard it, yeah, Google it, yeah, put it in Yahoo. And just listen to the whole 10 to 16 minutes of it. Wow. I mean, it's just blowing me away. I couldn't think of anything else to say about my clan family since I was so distracted. It was to search, and then that happened, and my body's trying to tell me it wants to go back to bed and sleep. But this being a time of the night, this is when the zombie still yawns his head off and still tries to talk to people or talk at people. That situation yesterday, or actually earlier on today, kind of made me think about things like that. I'm open for comments on a lot of these things. I just don't get them. I'm open for people to like or dislike. I'm open for mostly the comments out there because the feedback is generally what I look for. If people actually have feedback of things of going through their families, communications between people are kind of essential in the things we have to deal with these days, especially the type of topic that I keep dealing with, mental illness. I said mentally challenged, and people keep thinking I'm nuts, or that I've got ADHD, or possibly maybe some other weird stuff happening. But no, when I have my own mental demons driving me crazy, they make me challenged. I'm mental enough as it is, so it's appropriate for me. I'm not autistic. At least I haven't been checked out on this much. Some behavioral therapist thought that I was. I hate to tell her that, but the doctors would have said so a long time ago. They never picked up on it. They're not physical science. Not when I was born. Not when I was born. All growing up, and they still never picked out if I was still autistic or not. Or maybe a higher functioning Asperger's. No, I wasn't. The videotapes were supposed to be educational to the people, but also as an archive for my own memories at this point. Despite the fact that I've got family clan out there that has no clue who the hell I am, and seems to be says they don't have a clue who the hell I am and don't even bother to pay attention of who the hell's following them. Sometimes I gotta put out my stories out there, my own memories of what I remember growing up as a kid, and what I remember from listening to Ma and Grandma and Dave, my big brother, before or after I pass out. Yeah, most of the time I'm pretty damn dour and sour at this point over here, trying to tell people, or just being out of it, just like Richard Lewis, comedian back in the 80s and 90s, trying to tell people what it's like to be totally depressed. He's got a depressed life, and he was trying to make people happy and laughing at him for it. Me, on the other hand, having a depressed life means I don't like having anybody laughing at me because I'm already having enough issues as it is. And I suppose it's a hard thing to relate to people who haven't been through there, or under medications and they're dealing okay with it. I don't like medications. Never have. The only medications I would ever take when it comes down for pain is usually Tylenol, and that's about it. It's the only medication I trust. But when it came down for medications to treat me as such, I was always leery about the damn stuff. Antibiotics is one thing. Erythromycin, okay. And a few others that came out in liquid form. A young kid, you can't take the pills, so you have to take the liquids left and right. And the erythromycin was this greenish stuff, and there's this other purplish stuff that I had to take as well. And I had to take it because I couldn't take the penicillin. I couldn't take penicillin. Not even to this day. My body still got programmed into its genetics of not liking, not tolerating, and shutting me down with penicillin. I don't dare trust the stuff going into my body these days. So I've always stayed away from the medical establishment as much as possible. And what scares me the most is seeing my own family going through, before they passed away, of what they tolerated and what they couldn't tolerate regarding medications. Certain medications my mother would be taking for psychotic, just get her mood swings mellowed out a little bit. Desipramine would be the medication for that. But to get off the medication for a while, and your body starts reverting, and it's a scary thing to see. For 1 week, my mother had been off of desipramine, and she'd been on it for about 10 years. 10, 15, I think. But the body developed tolerance for it, and almost an addiction to it. She had to have it on a regular basis, because she had to have her moods regulated, and she had to have herself regulated on that one. But without a week's worth of supply in her system, her body was rejecting it or doing something because she was on edge all the time and angry and pissed off like crazy. And my brother and I could not figure it out why we were the guinea pigs until we discovered that the delivery got screwed up in the backyard. We found the medications, Ma got the pills, and she had to make apologies left and right. But it was a lesson in my head of saying, watch out for the medications, kid. Sometimes your body will get so damn addicted to it, you don't know what the hell you're going to do. So I had to be careful with medications. Antibiotics is one thing. Pain relievers, when people started having aches and pains left and right, in the 80s all the way through the 2000s, Vicodin was one of those, and Oxycodone, was one of those medications that actually put a person into the worst state I've ever seen, especially when they're coming down for addiction. Especially when they need the medication the most, and not just exactly for the pain itself. It's what it was doing to the body and the brain, screwing around with the neurochemistry, the neurons. I'd seen how it act. I'd seen how people acted on it and off of it, especially when they needed it the most. I'd seen it at different meeting halls when my brother kept going to meeting halls for recovery, and it scared the hell out of him because he didn't want to be that way either. It's one thing when a doctor prescribes medications says take as directed. Well, according to what 12 steppers would say, including the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous in there, if you're under a course of treatment, under a doctor's course of treatment there, it's all right. It's not considered a slip, and you can take the medications because the doctor has you under a course of treatment. But just taking the medications as is, that's not sobriety right there. But even so, if the medications are doing something to a person's body and a brain and changing it all around, the decision making mechanism is also affected, and it makes me not trust. People want the feeling more and more about how to let go and just be free. That's what they keep saying. The euphoria in the brain, where it just makes you feel the ookiest of everything. You're floating high. You're floating somewhere. Your attention span's screwed up. You can't think straight. You can't see straight. You got the audio-visual hallucinations going on left and right. And sometimes they'll put you to sleep. What would scare me the most is any new medication the doctor would give me for a treatment of this or a treatment of that. And I'd have to have someone watch me for about 24 hours just to see if I'm going to be alive or not. It's one thing sleeping with a CPAP machine, a machine forcing oxygen down my throat through an air mask. I don't mind that. What I do mind is having pills down my throat that keeps me from making lucid decisions. Now I'm having trouble right now talking because it's late at night and my body still wants to go back to bed. But part of me still wants to get this message out anyway. What the hell? So I'm up and I'm fighting it. I'm fighting my brain right now. It wants to put me on shutdown. I wanted to say something about my family. I wanted to say something to my families. But apparently, as I said before, my body's not going to allow me to do whatever I need to do or I feel like I need to accomplish at this point over here. It wants me to shut down entirely. As I said before, and I'll say it again. Because this is what your neurochemistry is without sleep. I have gone without medical assistance for a hell of a long time. And when it came down for losing family, it's gotten worse and worse for me. I had to talk about my own damn issues. I had to talk about the mental health issues. I had to talk about the physical issues I was dealing with. But I tried to get along. I tried to communicate how it affected my family as well, my brother and my mother. My brother had depended upon PTSD meds to keep him sane and safe. Otherwise, he'd be flashing out like crazy. He did that a few times on me before he passed away, where I didn't recognize him. He didn't recognize me until I had to force it to him gently, but force it to him that he was safe. I was his brother. He was home. He was having a flashback, and he felt like he needed to get stronger medications to help him out. That scares the hell out of me. My mother was still dependent upon blood pressure medications, and she was also depending upon mood swings. But after a while, they took her off of it and put her on medications concerning about epilepsy. She had been epileptic ever for her youth, and the doctors all had concerns and worries about her. There was a barbaric treatment that my mother told me about it. I can never find the research on this one. Where they evacuate the fluid out of your brain cavity so they can take an x-ray of it, so they can take a picture of the brain. I didn't know whether or not if she was joking about that one or not. But then again, knowing the doctors and the hacks and quacks of the 1930s and 40s, didn't know they were asking a hot rock concerning about brain, and because the science regarding neurochemistry was so new. Sure, why don't you screw around with a kid's brain? Why don't you? Trying to figure out why the epilepsy is still happening. The abnormal firing of neurons inside the brain in different sections causes paralysis sometimes, spacing out, not to mention falling down on the ground and shaking like crazy. Ma spaced out too many times. She almost came close to falling down and shaking like crazy in her adult life. She was telling me about that in her youth. So, living in the state of Utah, where she was residing in Hiawatha, Utah, back in the 40s and 50s, they had a problem concerning about women or young ladies having epilepsy because they didn't like epilepsy being passed on from generation to generation. Scared the hell out of them. They made a law. She couldn't procreate in Utah. That's okay, she didn't procreate in Utah. She got married away by this U.S. Army officer, U.S. Army cook. Got stolen at the age of 14 or 15. And sent to Texas, where she got pregnant and had my brother. David Shaw was born in Dallas, Texas. 58. He was lucky enough he had a big enough family out there. I still can't contact him. I don't even have the contact phone numbers these days. My brother's father was named as Harry Shaw. He had gotten himself into truck driving, and through it all, he became important executive in the transportation issue or supplies. I'm trying to remember the trucking company that they belonged with. My brother would probably be telling me from far beyond, screaming his head off in this one. So I said, when my brain is not working, it means I need sleep on this damn thing. Harvester International was the one that my father, actually my adopted father, Harry Shaw, God rest his soul, was using. Yes, Harvester, and they jumped with another company, I guess. My mother couldn't stand Harry to a point. One time he came home drunk and beat the hell out of her, and she tied him up, beat the hell out of him, took my brother and left. Divorced his ass. Came out to California. Stayed with my grandmother and a great aunt. Moved out to Lower California. Southern Cal. Well, if we want to make a technical issue about the damn thing anyway. But the thing is, I was born out here in Downey, 66. So, I never left California. Maybe on a few trips outside the state, but that's about it. I'm still California. Regardless of whatever happens to this state, I'm still here. Still my home. But I'll tell you, all throughout the years, my mother was living and trying to take care of a great aunt before she passed away in 76, and then my grandmother in 83, actually in 82. It was a long haul for that woman. It was a long haul for her. She tried her best to take care of two boys and the ladies. And then when the ladies passed, one guy gets to get screwed up in the United States Navy coming back with his own chemical addiction. But at least he didn't get drop kicked. He just got bad conduct, that's about it. But while he was in the Navy, he was still trying to do his job for his country, for whatever they asked him to. Including things that I don't think I'm at liberty to even say about it because it still grosses me out. Especially the kind of welcoming ceremonies that they actually had in the engineering department or among the BTs. Especially on an old carrier that got scrapped about 20 some odd years ago, or longer than that. My brother was on it. Coral C. He was telling me about Fire Room B, Charlie. One of the boiler rooms that he was assigned to. Some of the personnel over there didn't exactly like his ass before my brother got there. From one destroyer that was going to be turned into mothballs, transferred to a carrier that soon would have been turned into mothballs. How does that grab you? Maybe trying to invigorate itself and turning everything else to shaving blades. Him coming out of the Navy with drug problems and chemical abuse. It took him a hell of a long while to get clean and sober. And he died that way. 2018. 32 years clean and sober. And I was with him. Except for the last day. Being a caregiver for my mother before she passed, and then my brother before he passed. There was a lot of mixed emotions on this one. I was grateful, appreciative, honor bound. I was the youngest son. I gotta do this shit anyway. I gotta talk about him like this. I didn't talk about it like I hated their guts and they were. We all had our moments. But my brother and I had bonded over the past 15, 20 years. Be closer. And yeah, we had our spats every once in a great while and separate and then we breathe. And then we look at each other and say, okay, this was stupid. Let's try this again, shall we? Let's not try this again. But when it came down for taking care of our mother, and then me taking care of my big brother, I wouldn't trade those years anywhere. Hard as they were, difficult, screwed up, absolutely asinine. But what isn't when you're taking care of family and you have to do a lot of things for them? And that was that kind of situation my mother had to deal with when taking care of my great aunt and my grandmother before they passed away. Ma stayed home despite the fact she had a bad back, and my brother was trying to do as much as he could until he went to the Navy. And she still had to look after me, but she still had a few people trying to come over to help take care of it. Grandma and Aunt May when my mama needed at least a few hours of sleep. There had been times we had to take Aunt May to the hospital. Her heart would give her problems. One night, right after my birthday of turning 13, she passed away. And it was the hardest damn thing I ever gone through. Is a woman that I had spent a few years with, who may have been a pain in the ass originally, but then she turned out to be quite a woman afterwards. They all kept accrediting me for the thing, but I don't know. I think it was still her. I guess she just wanted a reason to change. She was a mean old she was a mean old woman sometimes, but I grabbed her by the face. According to the story, and I don't even remember it to this day, but I remember the story. I grabbed her by the face and said, I don't care how angry you get, I don't care how mean you get, I still love you. She liked yelling at me a lot before I did that, but and the hardest damn thing is to do is to say goodbye to a woman, especially when you see her through a partition glass and you see her in a viewing hall. We traveled up to Oakland. Me, Ma, Grandma. Dave couldn't go. Navy wouldn't let him go. Despite hardship situations, my brother was pissed off at the Navy for that one. Because of the jobs he was given, he wasn't allowed to leave ship or even allowed to leave for temporary, just for bereavement. They had something like bereavement leave. He could have just stayed home, but he couldn't. Because of his specialty, those just long story short about my brother there. My brother had made it into the SEALs, United States Navy SEALs. And he did it one way that the people around who claim they've been in the military long enough still can't believe my brother did it that way. Maybe it's true, and I hope to God it is. And the thing of it is, you don't beat up a boot camp drill instructor and expect to stay in the Navy. But that's what happened. Somehow, a SEAL commander was on the training base, saw the whole damn thing, and saw how the other training NCOs came out, dogpiled on my brother. The guy's name was Wired. He was pushing my brother a lot. He'd been in there about a week or two. Said something more derogatory about my mother that my brother broke. Now, the thing is, I understand concern about boot camp. They're supposed to be breaking it down and then building it back up as fighting men, as sailors, as part of the United States military. The one thing that my brother had regretted, well, there's a lot of things he told me he regretted in the Navy. Punching out Wired was one of them. even though he felt Wyatt had it coming. He came damn close to getting a dishonorable discharge during that time. They were merciful. They gave my brother two options: dishonorable, or try 3 phases of the SEAL boot. Coronado was the training base for the SEALs at the time, way back in the 70s. And across the bay, they had the recruit training center for the United States Navy, and also to mention for the Marine Corps. My brother would do it in phases. He did the phases. And when he graduated 2 times in this one, he had an uncle living out there with a family. Raymond Morse. But there was still the Cameron line. Raymond Cameron. That was my cousin. Chris Cameron, the other cousin. And Morris. Called him Uncle Bill a lot. Him and Aunt June. I swear I loved this family like crazy. I wasn't quite sure about Ma, though. Growing up as a kid and as a teenager, I think Uncle Bill would have been the better father for me. I challenged my mother on that one time. I regretted that ever since. He had been a father figure to me, but I heard not so much of a father figure to those other kids. But they must have had better memories of him than I had. There was a special ceremony that my uncle actually attended for my brother. My brother got his Budweiser. He went on to complete a few more sessions, a few more phases with the teams. And in some of those missions that he was going through, some of the training interfered with the time when Aunt May passed away. There was no way he was coming. No way to take time off. Of course, he was angry about it at the military. Ma kept wondering whether or not he was going to be coming home. She couldn't deal with Grandma. Right after the funeral we had up in the Oakland area, Ma was having issues with Grandma during that time. And I couldn't deal with it as a kid, and nobody else could help me deal with it as a kid, of all the pain and grief and everything else going on. So I had to keep it all in. I had to lie to everybody else that I was doing all right, and I wasn't. I was emotionally screwed up. There was no time for grief. You had to go back to school and deal with the reality check over there. You're just getting into junior high. 6 months later, I broke down because I couldn't deal with it. I had a nightmare or a dream concerning about my aunt visiting me in my dream. I'm trying to get ready for school, and she's standing in the doorway with her blue and white nightgown. I'd seen her sleeping so many times, and she was smiling at me. And that day of days, she got me real good. I couldn't function that day, but I had to. But it was also during a time when my mother and my grandmother were going after each other. We had been moving from, a lot of things were happening during those days. 79, we moved from one portion of the San Fernando Valley, which was Arleta, to another area of Granada Hills. A church that we had been across the street from bought the property for the pastor. He was going to move in regardless. He was going to toss us out. But his congregation is more than willing to help us out move the wrong way. Grandma couldn't stand what was going on, so she went off. She went traveling over to San Diego. See Uncle Bill in June. Morris Cameron. Next thing my mother knows, she's getting a call from Morris Cameron, her brother. Grandma got put into the hospital because she suffered a stroke. Grandma hadn't seen a doctor not in a long time. They would have worried more about my grandmother's heart than they were concerning about a stroke situation, but somehow she did. Took out half her brain. Well, motor control went out. Speech was still there. She was partially blinded on the left side. It paralyzed her left. Her right side was the only one working. For motor control, anyway. And they had her stabilized in the hospital for about a week, two. My mother took the time to get down to the hospital in San Diego and bring her back home. And she had to contact the doctors out here, her primary care physician, the hospitals, and home health. She had to get everything else working on that situation, plus taking care of me at the same time. And during this time, my brother's still having information force fed to him a little bit, and he's having a conniption fit. Grandma's having a situation, and the Navy can't get him out of there. But he wasn't getting the information fast enough through the chain of command. They kept it quiet for him. At one time, my mother would know the commanding officer and would have a phone number, and she would ring him. How come David's not sending me letters? I want my letters. What's going on? David was going through training. I don't care. I want my letters. So the CO, got on my brother's ass for not writing enough. He didn't have time to write, but he was ordered to. He gets home. Ma's already having problems dealing with Grandma and having issues with her own sister, Irene Stoffus. God bless her soul and God rest her soul. And because Irene would come in drunk, Uncle George kept her that way. At times I thought he was a decent man, but getting older, I didn't think so. But I can't argue about it with the cousins, the daughters of Aunt Renee and Uncle George. I can't argue about that one because of what happened. They lived in Bell. They lived in the southern portion of city of Los Angeles. Almost on the outskirts of the city proper. But they were the closest relatives and came to the house quite often. it just uh, some of the memories coming back are just, especially when my aunt tried to feed me a grilled tuna fish sandwich, and I was sick at one time. Grandma was still in the bed. Aunt Rainey was trying to take care of me, and she gave me a sandwich, and I threw up. Well, I was already a sick kid anyway, so. But Ma had to deal with me and my issues. And this is well before David got back. And well, when David did get back, he stayed out of the Navy for about a year, year and a half. And then was told by Uncle Bill when he came up, checking on how Mama was doing. He did that on a few occasions. But when he saw David over there, it put him on an edge. My uncle was working for the state of California as a special investigator, based out in San Diego. And Uncle Bill would talk to my brother once about this. My brother told me about it years later. That's why David had to pack his trash and get the hell out that same weekend. As soon as Uncle Bill left, my brother left. But he didn't leave for other parts of the country or anything else. No, he packed his trash and went over to Port of Long Beach, where at the time they still had a naval base over there. Reported in, got put into brig, get started with the processing. 6 months to a year later, he comes back. He's discharged, but at least now he's able to help. Last year of Grandma's life, and I'm still going through what? I think a graduation of. Well, let's see, it was 81. I graduated in junior high. In 82, I was at Kennedy High School as a junior. And Grandma dies. My brother was doing drugs and alcohol during that time. It was getting worse and worse until 85. I'm getting to the point of graduating out of Kennedy, and my brother is getting to the point of being tossed out of the house. I have happy pictures, theoretically, of my graduation and of him smiling like crazy because he was proud of me being graduated, but the bastard never figured out that Ma and I sure she was going to be talking to me about it. Tossing my brother's ass out because of his drug usage. He was a constant weed smoker, not to mention an alcoholic. Where else was he going to be getting his funding from? His mother's purse. A dime bag here, a dime bag there. Oh, how about a trip up to San Fernando? That was fun. That was royal fun right there. I had to be the watchdog. I'm more scared of dealing with Mama than I was with the cops. I should have been reversed right there. I should have been more relieved Ma trying to rescue me, but I know she would be beating the shit out of me on this one. Or worse, the silent treatment. It was just as bad. She got sick and tired of it. She had to talk to people she had in a program with 12-Step Overeaters Anonymous. And they gave her the ultimatum. Get him out. Toss him out on his ass. She didn't want to do it, but she had no choice. So, got tossed out on his ear. I had to spend the entire summer trying to get different jobs going so I can get to school. Continue education. Ma wanted me to do that. Should have waited a year or two. But the way things are going at home, shit. He comes back home a few months later looking like a damn skeleton. Couldn't stand seeing him like that. But I called Ma. Ma talked to her friends. She went over to a meeting, came back home, gave my brother an ultimatum. Call this guy in the morning or else get out of the house. By the way, John can fix you dinner. Didn't realize that that Dave and I had already fixed the dinner already for her. She wasn't going to be eating with us. She'll eat it when she gets home, cold. And during that time, we didn't even have a microwave. Ma watched David throughout the night, making sure that he was breathing all right, because when he came home, he wasn't breathing all right. He had been discharged from a mental ward over at Northridge Hospital at the time, back in '85. Apparently, there was a Marine doctor over there who had treated a lot of people going through chemical addiction and mental health illness. My brother was over there for a 3-day hold. He got sick and tired of living on the streets. Got a gun, loaded it up, revolver. Not a slide mount. Anyway, he went over to a motel room, checked in, and tried to kill himself. He wasted 6 rounds, loaded up more rounds into the barrel, and did 6 more taps on the ends of the firing pins. Nothing happened, except when he slams the gun down and it hits the door and it blasts it open. Actually, it blasts a hole in the thing. Next thing he knows, he's crying his eyeballs out because he can't kill himself, and he's having emotional issues at that point. Emotional issues. He said he wanted to die. He wanted to die. The cops came, talked to my brother, put him over to Northridge Medical for a 3-day psych hold. They gave him time to clear out his head, realize what the hell he's done, and hoping maybe he'd get back home to be helped. First 30 days were hard enough on him as it is, and also on me. I'm still trying to get through college and trying to work a part-time job, and he's still trying to prove to Ma he's useful. But not useful, that he's trying to change. When he first got his 30-day chip, that was the best thing for him and the worst thing, because he told me that his first 30-day chip he had to turn in, he had to get a second 30-day chip about a month later. He was doing the marijuana maintenance, but he was off the alcohol. My brother, he fought battles I never knew. External and internal ones. It was rumored that my brother could not show his true SEAL self to the world because they would consider him being false. My brother didn't care. Neither did I. My brother earned his Budweiser. And to this day, He tried for many years to get his record cleaned up, but the Navy kept losing it. Finally, our last several years, we lost his records due to a screw up with our storage. He died as he was discharged, other than, but at least he died with integrity and respect of a lot of people who loved him and dealt with him. Me, I dealt with a hell of a lot of issues dealing with Ma's medical concerns and David's medical concerns. A time when my mother was home at one particular house we were moving, or actually got moved into, and we heard about Aunt June's passing. Pissed us off. We weren't there for the service. It was like a year afterwards we got the notification from the family. And I guess maybe it was something happened. Well, actually it did. There was some things we screwed up on. We attended one cousin's wedding, but failed to go to the other cousin's wedding. And we could have. And to tell you the truth, I honestly don't know why we didn't. To this day, it's held against me. I'm a survivor. And it was held against Ma and Dave. Decades later, when we're dealing with Ma's physical health situations, we're wondering how come the family hadn't tried to contact us or to see how she was doing, and we all got it heated against each other. I guess we didn't have bridges built during that time. We nuked them. Right now, I might as well call the bridge rice paper thin. Barely have contact with the cousins, or with anybody for that matter. I have tried a few ways of trying to communicate to people, of sending the messages out, but I guess nobody's been picking up on them. There was supposed to have been a reunion before my mother passed away in 2013, but it never happened. Nor was there any reunion happening before my brother passed away in 2018. So I guess the only way I can get the stories out of my own history is basically these vids. Because if I happen to pass away, at least some stories will be said out there about how we lived and how we died. Mama died because of natural causes at this point over here. She had multiple medical conditions happening. Respiratory failure was one of them. She was basically vapor locked. That day, hours beforehand, I was giving her her last meal and didn't even realize it. Pomelos. She asked for it. She actually was lucid enough to remember me. The last days of her life, she was having memory issues and screaming for my brother because I was there, her youngest. But apparently when I was giving her Pomelos, I guess she was trying to tell me she was sorry through her eyes. And then hours later, Dave and I are seeing her choking. And we called 911. About half an hour later, they're wheeling her into the emergency room and put her on a vent. It was about 17, 18 days later she passes away. 2013, February. The hardest damn thing. We were going through eviction from the apartment we were living in. My brother and I were having life hitting us head on and dead on. My brother's medical conditions were getting worse the last few years of his life. His diabetes had flared up a bit. His PTSD flared up. I was lucky enough he didn't get cancer from all the damn smokes he had. He did. He tried to cut back on his sodas. He was a heavy soda drinker. But 1 month before he passed away, or 1 or 2 months before he passed away, he actually had a stroke that hit him, different areas. And they were affecting him slowly but surely. Speech, mobility, cognitive. The hardest day was the 8th of September 2018. David wakes me up in the same apartment here. He can't breathe. 3 words, he can get out. I'm on the phone with 911. And I'm looking at him to see whether or not if he's turning blue or not. Somehow he's still managing a little bit of oxygen flow, so it hadn't tinged his skin yet. And I was trying to clear a way for them to get an ambulance, stretcher out here. They barely managed to able to get into the stretcher, sitting up, until they got him into the ambulance. During that time, I already had our gear ready to go, everything locked up, trying to get things organized in my head of what I needed to do, and making arrangements for rides home if I need them. Never did it occur to me that I was seeing my brother coming in through the emergency room as a slab of meat. I'd seen the tubes, I'd seen the wires, I'd seen the leads. It wasn't my brother. It was, but it wasn't. And all I was doing is screaming at a damn corpse. I got chased out by security. I had to focus my brain and had to call family and friends and let them know what was going on. Besides the well-wishing thing, the thing is I needed was help during that time. There was somebody to get their ass down there to help me out. I was putting up maydays throughout social media that somehow somebody in the program actually did come over and stayed with me for a time. Brought me back home. And I didn't realize what the hell I was going to do. Except karma had a different thing altogether. Bed bugs and possible eviction because my brother passed away. And he was at the time, according to their paperwork, for about a year, he was the only one paying rent. I was going through a disability situation, going through Social Security, trying to get stuff going, and it took them a long time to get the paperwork processed and the money to come in. And by the time it did that, it was coming close to my brother's time to die. I was paying the rent and I was paying the bills. Next thing we know, next thing I know, I had to go back to the hospital, fill out the damn paperwork, get his crap, and get the hell out of there. But then they're asking me what the hell they're going to be doing with the body at this point over here. I hadn't figured that shit out because I was losing my brain at the time. I had somebody else trying to help me out, taking me home to help me out with a few things anyway. And also, this friend of mine talked with her brother of getting my brother's body moved to a mortuary where they can do the cremation. My brother didn't want to be buried. Ma didn't want to be buried. Both of them wanted their ashes scattered to where the places they wanted to be. Mama wanted to be scattered out in Utah, Hiawatha, Utah specifically. And my brother over the state of Texas and also over the ocean. The ocean because of the Navy situation and because my brother was born in Texas. To this day, I haven't done it. I haven't had the time or the money for it, or enough for it. I managed to take care of getting a new lease for this apartment under my name. I suppose I'm going to be screwed over one way or another. And there was a bedbug infestation that I had to deal with as well. Get rid of that situation. Not to mention a mattress or two I slept on. Little dog I've got with me, a little girl. She's a Chihuahua mix with a Dachshund. We'd gotten her about, must have been a year or two before Ma passed away. Long time. She's still young and still sprightly, and she still mourns for Mama and for David. And wonders if I'm going to be dying next. She keeps asking me through her eyes. I know this is a long ass video, but this is basically a status report to the families out there that I'm familiar with. And once I get the link, I'm going to be posting it on social media out there. Besides YouTube, it's going to be on Facebook. Because I wanted you folks to know, it's not a complete history, but it is something of my family. I'm still a student over at Antelope Valley College. I've been over there about 6.5 years already. GPA is climbing up there slowly but surely, correcting a 30-year mistake on this one. I got too many videos on my channel already, as it is, that talks about those kind of situations. And I'm fighting sleep deprivation, narcolepsy. My brain is going on shutdown half the time. Because of my brother's passage, it's changed my neurochemistry, where I'm barely functioning sometimes. When I'm having a normal day is when I'm not crying my eyeballs out or being in complete depression and or going through anxiety. I've had PTSD flashbacks concerning about an image I damn near got killed in that gave me my disability, thank you very much. I was a tire technician, but me and auto mechanics are like this. I'm a counter guy. I'm the guy who plugs in the information and rings up your order, stocks the shelves and helps you out, picks a tire from a Walmart. A carry-out order, it turns into a disaster when I got a supervisor dropping truck tires on my face. But no one puts me into the damn hospital because I'm not that dead yet. Damn paperwork. But still disabled enough where I couldn't go back to work. back and neck injuries, not to mention nightmares. Thank you very much. Crack open Pandora's box in the back of my head, and everything else kept leaking out. When David's passage came, that's when the Pandora's box just completely dissolved, and I've been dealing with it ever since. And dealing with the doctors and their medications, I have yet to deal with a physician that would be giving me any medications to modify my behavior or even modify my blood pressure. By the time I almost got to that situation there, I changed insurances, unfortunately, and not by my choosing. So, doctors next month. We'll see what happens. I'm going back to bed. I'm going to see if I can get some sleep. This is John Cameron Weaver saying goodnight, you folks, you zombies.